to another Straight Up Tuesday tip. I'm 𝗤𝗏𝗀𝗀, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. With me as always, Mark 𝗬𝗏𝗏, founder and owner of 𝗤𝘃𝗱𝗰𝗀𝗀. And with us again, previous guest from episode 158 and 164 from our sponsors over at State Farm, Josh Steigelmann. Josh, welcome back to the program.
Great to be back on, you guys.
We are excited to have you. And I know some of our listeners have called up and a lot of times asking about pricing, right? As investors, we're always curious on what things cost. So today, let's cover what actually affects your rate. What are some credits you can get? What are some things that might be a surcharge? What are all those different variables that go into this is what your annual insurance premium is going to be for said building?
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Tom. So some of the biggest things that can affect pricing, obviously, is the actual home itself, how much the home is valued at, what will it cost to rebuild it. But especially with here in Chicagoland, a lot of older dwellings for rental properties, you actually can get some credits if you are able to redo the interior of the home and get some new build credits back onto the policy. On a brand new house, you'll have some discounts on there because everything's brand new. The chance of something happening to it are very, very low. But as that house ages, those discounts start going away, and eventually even it turns from a discount into a surcharge. So you can see a house that was built, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, having a pretty heavy surcharge on it, all because you're not applying for the credits saying that you remodeled the house.
And when you say remodeled, what is important here, right? Like, what are we talking, utilities, is plumbing, electric? What are some of the, ones that are going to check the box?
So the most important things is the utilities. So you want to make sure that you have new plumbing in there. The electrical is replaced up to code. And then the other biggest thing I've seen with my company is making sure you have proper documentation from your contractors. You need to get various documents showing, you can't just say, oh, here's a receipt, I paid the guy to do work. You need stuff, photos, documentation showing, okay, this is what we put in there, how it was installed, because underwriters are kind of a little prickly about giving out those credits. So you want to make sure you have as much ammunition to go and get that credit for yourself. And the most amount of documentation you can get, the better.
So if somebody's buying a house and they're buying a rehab, obviously they're going to get quoted higher because they can't say that. Now, can they come back midterm and say, I've done all this work, I put $120,000 and upgrade all these things, and here's the pictures? Or is that something that they could just count on hopeful discounts at the next renewal?
Well, you can always apply with insurance. It's not a set guarantee, take it to the bank, this is what it is, you can never change it. You're always allowed to change things with your insurance plan, even midterm. But that is something you would have to apply for. There's no guarantee that an underwriter is going to approve it, but that's something, we do a good job with our customers and clients of submitting for, knowing what, documentation that they're going to require. But that is something you can do midterm and not wait for the renewal on.
Here in Chicago, we have about 140-year range from newest house to what I know of to be kind of the oldest in the 1880s. What's kind of those timeframes? You talked about new and you talked about old. What are some kind of those breakpoints where you get discounts versus you get penalized for the age of the home?
Right. So the breakpoint from going to where you're getting a discount on the bill to where it's now starting to be a surcharge is actually right around the 1960s. That's kind of the time frame that we're seeing on there. Is really where the surcharge starts coming in. It does start a little bit before then, but it's a very minor surcharge. But anything pre-1960s, unless you bring that documentation to the table, you could end up paying a much heftier premium on that policy.
What about in Chicago here, right around that time was lead versus copper pipes? Is that taken account anywhere in the upgrades, or is lead pipes versus updated copper plumbing, is that penalized any higher than just being updated or not updated?
Not in my experience. They're more concerned with basically the actual build going to crap basically and something coming apart. I mean, I suppose lead would have a higher chance than copper, but that's not something that we've seen a typical case on. Typically, you're talking with deterioration coming into play, and wiring being the main concern. Actually, a lot of the wiring now, even with homes, we have to have credits or documentation showing that the wiring has been updated because of fires. Like their main concern is fires actually with it, as opposed to plumbing issues.
Talking about fires there, hardwired smoke detectors versus, battery operated. Is there a discount for having hardwired?
There is no discount for having hardwired. We don't even have an inspector come out and double check on things like that. But I would advise, if you have, battery powered, make sure you're swapping out batteries. Just that's a good thing to do. But no difference cost wise between for insurance between hardwired or battery powered.
All right. January 1st, last year, 2 years ago now, Chicago put in place, you have to have the 10-year sealed. And then this year, the rest of the state of Illinois, you now have to have the 10-year sealed battery smoke detector.
Yeah.
So, FYI. So kind of we start kind of inside, going outside. So our housing stock, brick, frame, like talk to us about that. Where's the, are you, because the pig can't pull it down your big brick house, so you get much cheaper insurance than the frame house? Like, how does that work?
For sure. So any masonry or masonry veneer, so brick over framework, that is something that can get a reduced premium because of the fact that it is more resistant to fire, obviously. It has more resistance to other elements as well. So that is something, as long as your home is 60% brick or brick veneer exterior or any masonry exterior, that is something that will help give you a reduced premium. So it doesn't have to even be 100% brick all the way around. As long as it's 60% or more, you can get a reduced premium because that classifies it in that masonry or masonry veneer category.
So I'll correct my reference to big bad wolf blowing down your house. But as far as brick veneer, is there certain types you have to use?
He didn't blow anything down.
I know. I was waiting for you to jump in and correct me. In case anyone's listening, I want to make sure I shook my head on that one after I said it. But the thickness of the veneer, is there any sort of requirements along those lines as far as it being applied to being brick?
No, we don't. We don't have any requirements on that. I haven't seen any companies in the industry that put a requirement on that. Obviously, everything is subject to underwriting, but in my experience, the thickness does not have an effect on that.
Let me ask you a question
along those lines. Go ahead, Mark.
No, so I wonder though. Maybe you could shed light on. So we will probably talk here about rebuilding a house, like a total loss, right? Would it be more expensive to total rebuild a brick than it would be a frame? Is that accounted for? Or are they thinking that the chances of having to replace the brick is so rare because it's going to at least have good bones left after a fire? Like, how's that thinking, I guess?
Yeah, so it is more expensive to rebuild a brick or, adding in brick veneer or masonry veneer onto a home. That is something where when we run an estimate on the house to see what the rebuild cost is, kind of what we talked about before in a previous podcast about rebuild cost versus market value, that is something that can drive the price up, but it is then countered by the discounts of, the likelihood of having a total loss on a masonry or masonry veneer home is lower. So in actuality, the premium is still lower for a masonry home, but it is something where if you have the same square footage on frame home versus the same square footage on a masonry home should have a higher rebuild cost estimate on it.
Yep. And putting a bow on the exterior here, one other thing to point out, I know at least in my personal residence, we have the fiber cement, the hardy, and I've gotten discounts on that. Not as much as the masonry, but because it is, non-flammable or whatever it was, like it was actually
flame resistant.
Yeah, flame resistant. All of a sudden, there was, we were getting credited compared to like the old aluminum or old vinyl that it was there. So if you end up having, you buy a home that has hardy or any of these other fiber cements on there, it sounds like there's some in between, brick and vinyl there that you should get some credit for.
100%.
Cool. All right. So we talked about the house. One other thing that I've kind of noticed, because I've invested in, C-class areas and A-class areas, it seems like they also take in the neighborhood to account. Right, whether it be crime or whatever data I don't know what is done behind the scenes, but can you shed some light on just, what else goes into it just from a more macro level instead of just the individual home?
Yeah, so from a more macro level, one of the things that will go into your actual rate is for your area, the claim frequency. So they're not allowed to go off of, okay, what's the crime rate in the area? Because that's not something that is insurance specific. But they can go, okay, based off of the data, this zip code, there was X amount of claims over this amount of time frame. So the claim frequency is going to be something that has a huge effect on it. Now, it's kind of hard for customers to know that information because that's not just public information. But one thing you can look for is there are websites where you can go and check and track storm data. So where was there a lot of hail damage? You can also track, for instance, out in the suburbs, there's been some tornadoes recently, out in 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵𝗏, I believe it was in 2020, wiped out, did multi-millions of dollars in damages. That's something where that area now is going to be affected by that for the next little while because of the fact that that specific area had a higher claim area. Whereas someplace that, if you're in the city and, kind of like you're talking about that A class that hasn't had a lot of damage, they have higher quality builds and they're not damaged as frequently. Even, when hail comes in, we had pea-sized hail come in and hit the suburbs just yesterday. Not a lot of damage in the area because it's pea-sized hail. But if you have a lower quality build, that it's not going to take as much, damage, it's going to get broken pretty easily. That's something where it's going to cause more claims and more claim frequency. So there's some things that, insurance companies like to hold really close to the chest and not share, but you can sort of find your workarounds, and your best information is whatever you can find publicly, which is going to be, like I said, you can search for storm data, what, do overlays, what has it been over realistically the last 2 to 3 years is what they're looking at.
Awesome. A couple of quick quick hitters, and then we'll wrap. But you're just talking about this insurance database. Do all insurance companies upload all of the claim damage? Like, is there one thing that any insurance company can see all the claims of every other insurance company? Is that
not in my experience? There are insurance companies that do share data there's a central reporting agency similar to like a credit reporting agency, but that's very customer specific. So a lot of that information is incredibly confidential because of customer information. So they won't share a lot of that. It's not public information that you can go grab. Okay.
Do you get a discount if you have a fire hydrant in front of your house? Dispel the myth.
Not in my experience, no. Fire department, yeah, but fire hydrant, no.
All right. Do you get any discount for shutting off a fireplace or closing up or defunctioning, debunk, whatever, taking a fireplace out of service?
No, not in my experience, no.
All right. That's all I got. I thought I had a third one, but no.
There we go. Get the Mythbusters out of here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ton of great info. For those who have more questions or just want to understand, make sure they're paying the right amount. Josh, we'll link to your show. We'll link to all your info in the show notes. Mark, are you ready for a Chicago fact?
Yes. Sandra Sung bought a sweatshirt just a couple weeks ago, right before Christmas. Hopefully, maybe she gave it to somebody else as a gift, and now she has to buy herself one as well too. But Sandra Sung out of downtown, she looks like she's downtown in the Loop, and you're going to play for our $50 Amazon gift card.
All right, here we go. So today's guest, as we mentioned, from State Farm, Mark, as you probably know, an Illinois company, straight down 55 in Bloomington. Their current CEO was an undergrad at Illinois Wesleyan, which is also located in Bloomington. I think one of Illinois' best kept secrets here. Fantastic liberal arts school. I think it's about 2,000 students. Mark, what is their mascot? Illinois Wesleyan, their mascot, and I'll give you multiple choice. Is it the Wildcats, the Vikings, the Titans, or the Warhawks?
I'm going to go with the Wildcats just out of a pure guess. Warhawk seems so too Indian related that they might not be using that. I don't know.
Josh, what do you want to go with?
I'm this one. Wildcats sounds right to me, but I don't know for sure. That's a guess.
I think like 1 out of 7 teams are like called the Wildcats, so it is like the best probability, guys. No, they're the Titans.
The Titans. Ah, man.
Illinois Wesleyan Titans. I stole these. I had a lot of friends play D3 football, so I just stole them from all the other schools. But Wisconsin Whitewater is the Warhawks. That is an actual team.
Gotcha. Oh, man. All right. Sandra Sung, I apologize. Buy us another sweatshirt, and we can get you back in here for another round where you can win. So
buy another one.
Yeah, dude. Awesome. Josh, maybe I'm just getting old, but insurance excites me, and all the stuff you gave us today, actually, I think is great information for all of our listeners. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, we have, I was going through 2022 numbers, and our meetup page on straightupchicagoinvestor.com is our number one page for the most amount of visitors and people that spend the most amount of time on there. So if you're not on there, get us your information and we'll put you on there. If you haven't been on there for yourself right now, you should be planning out your Q1, all of your Q1 meetups and planning for what nights you're going to be out networking. So check it out. Josh, thank you. Tom, thank you as always. And listeners, we'll see you Thursday.
Thanks all.